crazy, right? You think about the justice system. It's supposed to be like this bedrock, solid, keeps everything running smoothly. But lately, I don't know about you, but I feel like there's this, like, tremor, this wobble. Like something's a little off.
Yeah, there's this sense that maybe things aren't as, well, unshakable as they should be.
Exactly. And I was listening to Kapil Sibal recently, senior advocate, Rajya Sabha MP, and what he had to say about the state of the Indian judiciary, well, let's just say it gave me pause. It's a conversation that forces us to ask ourselves, where do we actually stand with our faith in the system today?
Right. It's a question that really gets to the core of things. And when someone like Sibal, with his decades of experience in the legal world, voices these serious concerns about declining public confidence in the courts, you have to take notice. This isn't just a casual observation. It's a perspective shaped by deep firsthand knowledge.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do in this deep dive is unpack Siebel's key arguments, the
Yeah.
issues he's raising, and really try to graft the picture he's painting of the Indian judicial system.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so one of the first things Sybil brought up, and this really hit me, was this statistic about bail. He said that at the district and sessions court level, something like 90 to 95% of bail applications are getting rejected. 90 to 95%. That's wild, right?
Yeah, it's a staggering figure.
It really is. So let's break that down. What does that actually mean for the average person, you or me, if we find ourselves caught up in legal trouble?
Well, think about it. You're facing charges, maybe not even something super serious, but the odds are incredibly stacked against you getting bail. So what happens? You end up spending a significant chunk of time behind bars even before your case even begins. The impact on your life, your family, your job, it's huge.
It's massive. And then you hear these stories,
Mm.
right, about people with connections, money, influence, who seem to breeze through the same system. That disparity, that lack of even playing field, it feeds into this skepticism, this feeling like justice is being served selectively.
It's this sense of unfairness that starts to erode that crucial trust in the system. You see this high rate of bail rejection, and you can't help but wonder, is it truly about justice, or is there something else at play?
Yeah, exactly. And Sybil wasn't afraid to touch on that, was he? He suggested that maybe, just maybe, judges in these lower courts are operating out of fear. Fear of making a decision that could backfire, affect their careers, get them transferred, or even just attract negative attention. What do you make of that?
It's a disturbing thought, isn't it? We can't know for sure what's going on in every judge's mind, but the numbers suggest there's a systemic issue, a pressure that's pushing towards this incredibly high rate of bail rejection. And if that pressure is stemming from fear, well, that's a huge red flag. Because fear, as we know, rarely leads to impartial, fair decisions.
Right, and that brings us to another critical point Sybil made, the question of judicial impartiality. He expressed real concern about what he called majoritarian statements from judges, instances where they openly align themselves with specific political viewpoints. That's got to be a huge problem, right?
It is, because the idea of an impartial judiciary is central to our democracy, to the idea of justice itself. When judges start expressing overtly political views, especially those that seem to favor one group or ideology over another, it undermines the very foundation of their role. People need to believe that they will be judged fairly, regardless of their background beliefs or who they might have voted for.
And the example Siebel gave of Justice Shekhar Kumar Yadav of the Allahabad High Court is particularly jarring. The alleged statements about India needing to be a Hindu-majority nation to achieve global prominence and the reported derogatory remarks about minority communities, that's just, wow.
It is. Those kinds of statements strike at the heart of judicial neutrality. When a sitting judge expresses such sentiments publicly, it throws their ability to be impartial into serious question. Especially in cases involving religious or minority issues, how can someone from a minority community possibly feel confident that they'll receive a fair hearing from a judge who has openly expressed such views?
And then you have the case Sabal mentioned, the judge in West Bengal who resigned and then promptly joined a political party. It feels like a blatant display of bias, right? Like,
Yeah.
where's the line between judicial duty and personal political affiliation?
It's a blurry line, and the perception of bias, even if there's no concrete evidence of wrongdoing, can be just as damaging as actual bias. It erodes public trust, makes people question the motives behind judgments, and creates a sense of unease about the whole system.
Yeah, it's like a crack in the foundation, and once that crack appears, it's hard to ignore.
Exactly. And this ties into another crucial point Sabel made about corruption. It's not just about judges taking bribes, it's about what he called corruption of duty.
Right. That was really interesting. Explain that a bit more.
So, Sibal's point was that a judge's decisions can be influenced by fear, ambition, the desire for promotion, all sorts of things that aren't necessarily about money changing hands. But those influences, those pressures, can be just as corrosive to the integrity of the system. A judgment made out of fear of repercussions or in the hope of climbing the ladder is just as much a perversion of justice as one motivated by a straight up bribe.
And it's way harder to detect,
Yeah.
right? Like, how do you prove that kind of corruption?
It's incredibly difficult, and that's what makes it so insidious. It operates in the shadows, but its impact on the fairness of the system can be devastating.
Sibal did touch on the Delhi High Court cash scandal involving Justice Yashwant Varma, but he understandably didn't want to go too deep into it, given the ongoing investigation.
Yeah.
But even without knowing the specifics, just the fact that these allegations are out there adds fuel to the fire, right? It contributes to this growing sense of unease about the judiciary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Regardless of the outcome of any particular case, these kinds of scandals, these whispers of impropriety, chip away at public confidence. And that confidence is essential for the judiciary to function effectively.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about judicial appointments.
Yeah.
We have the current collegium system where judges essentially pick their successors, and then there's the government's push for the National Judicial Appointments Commission, or NJAC, which would give them more control. Sibel seemed pretty critical of both, didn't he?
Yeah, he wasn't a fan of either system in its current form. His main concern was that the whole debate seems to be more about who gets to control the appointments rather than ensuring the best, most impartial people are chosen.
It's like this power struggle, right? It's
It,
judiciary versus the government. And in the middle, the integrity of the system is getting squeezed.
exactly. And Sival's argument was that both sides need to step back, recognize that the current system isn't working, and find a way to work together to create a better one. But as you said, that seems like a pretty tall order given how entrenched both sides are in their positions.
It does. But if we circle back to Sybil's core warning about declining public faith in the judiciary, maybe, just maybe, that shared concern could be the thing that forces them to the table. Because ultimately, both the judiciary and the government need the public to trust the system.
You're right. That's the common ground, the shared stake. If the public loses faith, everyone loses.
Exactly. So let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. What Sybil's saying, in essence, is that we're witnessing a decline in public faith in the Indian judicial system. And he leaves us with this incredibly powerful question. If people start losing faith in the judiciary, where do they go for justice? That's a question with huge implications for the whole of society, isn't it?
Absolutely. When people lose faith in the system designed to deliver justice, the fabric of society starts to fray. The rule of law weakens, people feel less secure, and the potential for conflict and instability increases. It's a dangerous path and one we need to be incredibly wary of.
It's like this domino effect, right? Loss of faith in the judiciary leads to a weakening of the rule of law, which then leads to who knows what. It's not a pretty picture.
Not at all. And what I hear in Sybil's words is a call to action, a plea for those in power, both within the judiciary and the government, to take this issue seriously, to set aside political maneuvering and ego and focus on addressing the fundamental problems that are eroding public trust.
Because if they don't, we all pay the price, right?
Right,
It's
yeah.
our collective faith in justice that's at stake here.
That's right. And as we wrap up this deep dive into Sybil's concerns, I think the most important takeaway is this. The health of our democracy, our society, is deeply intertwined with the health of our judicial system. And if that system is failing to live up to its promise of justice, fair and impartial for all, then we all have a responsibility to speak up, to demand better, and to work towards solutions.
That's a powerful message to end on. So as we sign off, I want to leave you with this. What does justice mean to you? And what role do you believe an independent and trustworthy judiciary should play in our society? It's a question worth pondering, and one that each of us needs to grapple with if we want to ensure a future where justice truly prevails.